Hello there makers, today I'm going to do a tutorial summing up some hemming techniques when you're using stretch fabrics. Hemming stretch fabrics can be really frustrating because you can spend all your time putting on a beautiful neckband and making your item, and then only to find you get a really wobbly hem along the bottom, which finishes the overall look of your garment. Today I'm going to show you a couple of techniques for you to choose from and a few things that might help you get over some hurdles. How you choose to hem your jersey fabrics will depend what sort of jersey you've got and what sort of ease you need in your pattern. So if you've got a really slinky jersey like a viscose jersey, this can be quite prone to stretching while you're sewing the hem because it's got a huge amount of stretch and stretch recovery. But you can sew this with either a hemming web, which will stabilise it, or you can use a stretchy stitch to maintain that super stretch. If you've got a fabric that's curling a lot on the edge, and that's not a quality issue, that's just the way some fabrics are manufactured, then you might find the web hemming stabiliser is great because it will help you to get 2 flat folds to get your hem nice and flat without that sort of rolly tube inside, so that would work for that. You might also find that your fabric, if you use a cotton jersey, is perfectly stable and you would like a really smooth finish or a quick finish. So I'm going to show you some of those techniques today. I'm taking bits of footage from lots of different videos and new bits of footage that will all link together to help you hem your knits. So you'll see different fabrics, different tops, and me wearing different clothes. In terms of the technicalities of actually sewing a stretch stitch, you will be limited by what your sewing machine can do. So lots of machines have different ways of sewing stretch. So if you've got a basic machine, you're going to have to choose one of the zigzag stitches. If you've got a 3-step zigzag, that's 3 stitches, turn, 3 stitches, turn, you can try that. That's a sort of quite an acceptable looking zigzag stitch that you can see from the outside. You might have a lightning stitch. You might be able to change the width of your zigzag stitch to get a nearly straight line that still allows for fabric to stretch. Take a look at your machine, see what you can do, and try a test piece. If you've got a test piece of fabric, you'll see me use it in one of the clips. I was trying out all different ones. I wanted to see what I liked the look of from the right side and what would give me the stretch for the ease of the garment that I wanted. You will also find it useful when you're sewing stretch to use a stretch needle or a ballpoint needle so that the thread can just take a continuous journey through the stretch without getting caught and jammed in the elastane or the stretch product that's in the fabric. You might also want to invest in a twin needle for jersey if you want to finish the neckline on t-shirts, sleeves and hems. There are a few top tips for sewing jersey hems, and that is not to stretch your fabric as it's going through the machine. So you need to let your sewing machine feed dogs take the fabric through at the rate that it's going through, and you mustn't pull it from the back or pull it from the front. Another good tip is not to start your sewing on the seam. It's quite a sort of natural thing to do. You start on one side seam and go all the way around to the other side seam, but if you start on a knobbly chunk of fabric, then your foot's sort of already rocking a little bit, your stretch stitch can't get going. So it's best to start your seam line just before or just after the side seam where all the fabric's all bunched up, and then you can go all the way around, and then you can take a really nice smooth line through the seam allowances. Another top tip for sewing hems is to press them first, so that you've already got some crease lines that are stopping your fabric from sort of bubbling up under the machine, because if it's bubbling up while you're trying to get all those bubbles out and get it down flat, then inevitably you will be stretching the fabric a little bit. So make the press the first thing you do when you make a stretch hem, and you'll see me doing that throughout the projects in today's video. The first technique I'm going to show you is just a normal zigzag stitch. It's on a very, very narrow gauge, so it's just only just looks like a zigzag, and I'm going to use some tissue to help the fabric move through the sewing machine at the same rate as the feed dogs and the foot above. So this is sort of typical of what you might find when you first start hemming knit fabrics. You get this sort of wobbly line that spoils the overall look, and that's been stretched a little bit too much. And also, even though I didn't stretch it very much, the machine was stretching it, so the feed dogs were taking the bottom of the fabric through at a different rate to how much the foot was letting it slide through on the top. So you can overcome this by having a go at using a stabilising paper. So I've got a little piece of pattern tracing paper, or you can use greaseproof paper, and you can put that on the foot plate, and then you can put your hem on top. And sew. The paper's attached, but you can peel the paper off and it comes off in your first wash, but it stops you or the machine stretching the fabric. There we are, it just comes off really easily. And that's the difference there. So you can see without any stabilising paper, the fabric's really wobbly, and with it, and I haven't even pressed that or anything, it's really changed how the fabric has gone through the machine. So it's much, much flatter. So your first technique, if you're having a problem, might be to try a little piece of greaseproof paper or pattern tracing paper. Another technique, if you don't want too much bulk around the bottom of your hem, is to overlock your hem and then do a twin needle sew from the right side. So the twin needle has attached the two sides of fabric, and the second row of stitching has made sure that the overlocked edge is all sat down nicely as well. So that's a quick way to do a hem, which is to overlock, turn up once and sew. And that's really good if you've got a Ponte Roma stretch, because Ponte Roma is quite thick. You use it for winter knits and winter knit dresses and things, and if you fold that double, you end up with quite a chunky hem. So that's a great way of getting a flat, slim hem with an overlocked reverse. Before you hem your top, it's a good idea to try it on and check if you've used the lengthen or shorten line, that you've achieved the length that you want, and then see how much ease you need across the hips. So it's a really easy fitting top, so it's not tight around your hips like a basic fit tee. So you can stabilise this hem a little bit, which will help you for sewing. If you don't need a really stretchy hem, because it's a top with more ease, but you're using a viscose that might be a bit ripply under the machine, then you can try using some hemming tape. So this is a type of interfacing tape, but it's gluey on both sides, so you can't put the iron on it, and that will stabilize the hem. It still will allow the fabric a little bit of stretch to get it over your head and your shoulders, but then it gives the hemline a sort of really woven finish, even though you're using a stretchy fabric. So the way to use it is, it's 2 centimeters wide, so you will use a 4 centimeter hem allowance. So you can't glue it straight onto the fabric. You need to turn the fabric up and press, and then you can turn it again and add your stitch line. You still get a little bit of give in your fabric, but it's not the same as having a big wavy, ripply, stretchy hem. I'm going to apply that with the iron, and then I'll show you where to stitch to get your stitch line. It's a good idea if you're using a ironing board that you support the weight of the top, because otherwise if the top's draping over the edge of the board and it'll be really stretching, so make sure that the top is supported on the ironing board. So the hem webbing has made the bottom of the top really stable. It's easy to turn up now, and now I'm getting an even hem because the hemming web was 2 centimeters, and that's helping me to get my 4 centimeter hem. It makes it really neat on these joins here, where sometimes the fabric can stretch out over the seam line, so that's really neat there too. I'm going to use a stretch stitch still. You could use a straight stitch. If you try it on and you don't need any ease across the hips, then you can sew this with a straight stitch and that will give you a really neat top stitching line. Or you can just go around with the stretch stitch if you've got a really narrow stretch stitch that looks fine from the right side. So here it is from the right side, absolutely no ripples, still a little bit of stretch. If you're making a t-shirt or a top, really lovely side seams. Sometimes you get it all a bit bunched up when it's stretching, it stretches, and then when you get to the end you get a sort of bit of a ripple, but with that hemming web it's really well stabilised and really nice and flat, and that's without a final press. The top I'm hemming next is McCall's 7322 View F, which is a really stretchy viscose jersey, one of the Minerva exclusive fabrics, and you can see that I want to maintain the stretch and I'm happy to have a stretch stitch. Because this top's got a lot of ease, you can just do a turn up on the bottom, a double folded hem. So you fold up, you've got 3.2 centimeters to use as a hem allowance on here, so you can turn up by 1.2 and then you can turn up 2 centimeters and you'll get a nice deep hem. It is really stretchy viscose jersey, so you need to be particularly careful that you don't stretch it out. There's a couple of different methods you can use. You must never stretch it. If you're stretching it when it goes through, you'll get a really ripply hem. So make sure that the rest of the garment is supported. Put some books next to your sewing machine so that you can take the weight of the fabric. And you need to use quite a long stitch. This top, you don't necessarily need the hem to be really stretchy because you just need to be able to get it over your top. If you were making a fitted t-shirt, then you really need to make sure that your hem is very stretchy. Don't forget that ironing is everything. The press on a jersey hem is everything at the end. So even when you take it from your machine and you think, gosh, that's a little bit wobbly, you will be able to shrink out some of that ripple with your press at the end. Let's have a look at how we can hem this Minerva jersey. So if you've got quite a slinky jersey and you don't need it to stretch around your figure fit, then you can use just a double folded hem, and you can put your hot hemmer here and get your 1.5 seam allowance and press. I've already been round here because it's quite fiddly, but you can keep moving the hot hammer along to turn up your 1.5 seam allowance, and then you can turn that up again and use a stretch hemming stitch. Now I've got my first hem turned up, I can turn again and I'm going to pin. I don't want to pin too much, I just need to hold that in place so that it doesn't peel apart under the machine. I'm going to pin the hem so I've got my second turn, and it's really nice and floppy still, and when I sew it I don't want to stretch it out. The hemming technique that you choose now is very much going to depend on what your machine can do and how you can control it under the machine the best you can. I'm going to use a stitch here, which is a sort of zigzag, but then it takes a couple of stitches on the hem turn up, and then the V will take me off the fabric, so I will get a stretch stitch hem. I'm just going to pop my sleeve board under here so that it's taking the weight of my fabric. So I've used a stretch zigzag stitch there, and you can see it's got straight stitches and then a little V every now and again, and those V's are what help it to continue to be stretchy. So if you've got a very fitted t-shirt, like say a Rio Ringer t-shirt that's very fitted and you really need that to stretch over your hips, then that's a really good stitch to use. You can use any stitch there though, so try on a piece of scrap fabric, see what your machine can do. You could use this stretchy stitch, you can use a lightning stitch, a zigzag, a very narrow zigzag. If you want it to look almost straight, then you can make your zigzag stitch 0.5 in width, and that will give you a straighter hem. It really does depend what you're looking for, but that technique of double folding your hem and using a stretch stitch will give you a really stretchy hem. If you've tried lots of hemming techniques and none of them are working for the fabric and none of them are really giving you the desired effect when you're trying to hem your fabrics, then you could also look a little bit outside the box and try a lettuce edge hem. That works really well on pyjamas, casual tops, kids' clothes, and there's a tutorial for that coming out soon. You might find with hemming the sleeve, taking the extension off your machine is helpful, because then you can fit your sleeve around the foot plate. But if you are stretching to get it round there, then you can't use it. This is okay. This is the circumference of the sleeve is bigger than the circumference of the extension leg. I hope that's given you a few ideas and techniques for hemming stretch knit fabrics. It is slightly more tricky, but if you choose the right technique, you can get the right finish. It really does depend on your fabric, how much elastane content it has, whether it's a fitted garment, whether it's a swing garment in a stretch fabric. So you've got quite a lot of different criteria there to choose your hem technique. Thank you very much for watching. Do come back for more Learn to Sew tutorials soon, and in the meantime visit our website to check out people's projects and their makes, and you will see some different techniques that people have used with different fabrics on different patterns.